Talking about the greatest forearms in bodybuilding history will take us back to the 60s when Mr. Olympia Larry Scott dominated the bodybuilding scene with his incredible biceps and huge forearms. Bill Pearl was another superstar from that era with massive forearms. He won the Mr. Universe competition for 5 times and was named the world's best built man of the century. He was equally as famous for performing his strongman routine, which included tearing off license plates, bending penny spike nails, and blowing up a hot water bottle, as well as his ability on the bench press exercise using up to 500 pounds. 3-time Mr. Olympia Sergio Oliva had great forearms in his prime time. Although I am not a huge fan of his arms, which absolutely were huge, yet lacked the aesthetics and the peak Arnold, for example, had in his front double biceps poses, Sergio, however, had massive forearms that can be easily considered among the best from that golden era. It's worth mentioning that in 1969, Sergio won his third Mr. Olympia by beating a Mr. Europe, a Mr. International, and a 4-time Mr. Universe winner, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Mike Menzer also had great forearms in his prime time. In the late 1979, Menzer won the heavyweight class of Mr. Olympia, but he lost in the overall to Frank Zane, who was awarded the title for a 3rd time that year. In the 1980 Mr. Olympia, he placed 4th in a tie with Boyer Coe behind Arnold, Chris Dickerson, and Frank Zane. He retired from competitive bodybuilding after that show at the age of 29. Casey Vieira was another pro bodybuilder who had massive forearms in his prime time. He is noted as the youngest ever amateur athletic union Mr. America, gaining the title at the age of 19 in 1971. In 1982, he placed 3rd in the Mr. Olympia competition behind Chris Dickerson and Frank Zane. Gunnar Rosbo is a former Norwegian bodybuilder who was known for his incredible forearms, which measured 20 inches at their peak. However, Gunnar never reached his full potential in bodybuilding, as he suffered with alcoholism and unhealthy eating. When he wasn't training, Gunnar spent time in bars, getting intoxicated and eating hot dogs. He would even come drunk on the day of a bodybuilding show, believing that alcohol would make him appear more ripped on the stage. This, combined with a nerve injury he received in 1982, led to his early retirement from competitive bodybuilding. The Australian legend Lee Priest arguably had the greatest forearms in bodybuilding history. His massive and veiny forearms looked insane and added to the greatness of his upper arms. His iconic pictures in which he showed off his forearms have always been immortalized as the greatest ever when it comes to this muscular department. 6-time Mr. Olympia Dorian Yates had massive forearms in his prime time. Granted, his forearms were not as massive as those of Lee Priest, yet it would be fair to say that Dorian had the best forearms among the Olympia winners next to Phil Heath, whose forearms are a league of their own. Known for having the best back in the business, Dorian's forearms added to the perfection of his front lat spread pose. Even in the side chest pose, you can still see how well developed his forearms were. Current Mr. Olympia Phil Heath has some of the craziest forearms ever in bodybuilding history. Even when he is relaxed, shaking hands with a fan, you can easily notice the crazy development of his forearms. Phil easily destroys his main rival Kai Green when it comes to the forearms development. These pictures from the 2012 Mr. Olympia show how weak Kai's forearms compare to those of Phil, regardless of the pose, whether it is the front double biceps, the front lat spread, or just seconds before hitting a specific pose. Phil just destroys Kai when it comes to the forearms. The beast, Roelly Winklaar, is arguably the only one who can match Phil Heath when it comes to the forearms development. Roelly has some of the craziest arms in the business and would be easily ranked as the bodybuilder who has the greatest triceps in bodybuilding history. Nevertheless, his massive forearms are as great as his triceps. They are incredibly huge and match the crazy development of his upper arms. The Canadian Frank McGrath also has some of the craziest forearms ever. His forearms are massive, veiny, and look explosive. Frank has been injured twice. In 2008, he tore a triceps in training. And in early 2010, he suffered serious injury due to a car accident and his spleen had to be removed. Since then, he has recovered and has been competing again. Jason Huh is another bodybuilder who has explosive forearms. His forearms are massive to the degree that they kinda overshadow his upper arms. His last professional competition was the 2013 Tampa Pro, in which he placed 12th. Nevertheless, I believe his forearms should be mentioned on our list. This picture worth 1,000 words. So that was my list of the greatest forearms in bodybuilding history. Don't forget to subscribe, and many thanks for watching. Have a nice one.